So I'm having a catch up with Simple Plan. How are you guys?
Very good. How are you?
Yeah, not too bad. Thanks so much. So you're here at Download. Back
Yes, we
again.
are again.
How's it feeling to be back?
It's great. We got some. Usually we go to Download. I feel like when we've been here before, the weather's been pretty, dark and wet. So this is like nice to have a nice, beautiful day. It's going to be awesome.
Impeccable. Beautiful.
Yeah, absolutely. Now, last year you released your latest record. So for those who haven't heard it yet, tell us a little bit about what they can expect to hear.
It's called Harder Than It Looks. It's I don't know. I guess it's a kind of a quintessential Simple Plan record. I think that in this point in our career, we figured we have to embrace who we are, and I think there's parts of your career where you try to fight who you are, and you try to change and evolve. And for this one, we felt like let's just go back to what people think Simple Plan sounds like, and try to make the best of that version. And I think we did a good job. So yeah.
Yeah, and was it the plan to create the record in that way, or did it simply just turn out that way?
No, I think it was a conscious effort to go back to our roots and just, like I said, kind of embrace what we sound like. Because I think, a lot of times, even myself, I find myself, if I'm a fan of a certain band, whether it's, Blink-182 or Green Day or whatever it is, I want them to make a record that sounds like what I think they sound like, you know what I mean? And of course, it's nice to have the artistic freedom to once in a while push that and break through. But for this one, we chose the other route,
I think the idea for the album was to recapture what we love the most about our own band. What made us want to be in the band, which I think is making fun music, lots of energy, and very honest and forthcoming in the lyrics. And that's we wanted to recapture that, find that, because that's what we love about our band. And I think, coincidentally, that's what our fans really love about us as well. So I think the result so far, the comments, everything we're seeing online and at the shows, it's like people are like, man, this is probably maybe one of your best records you ever made, which is pretty cool to do 22 years into, being a band.
And this is the first record you released since the pandemic. Did you have to write and do anything differently for this record than you have done in the past?
We actually had it all ready to go before the pandemic, and we chose, we all have kids, and the pandemic sort of became a pause for the band in many ways, not just touring, but we all live in different places. Well, not all of us, but we're kind of spread out a little bit. Yeah. So the idea of rehearsing was out of the question, and we kind of all just stayed home and focused on our families and our kids and used that time to connect with them and kind of put the band on a pause for a minute. Mm-hmm. And that gave us a chance to release this record after the pandemic when it felt like we could actually go out and tour with it. So technically, we made the record before that was all happening. So we didn't have to deal with doing it at a distance or that kind of stuff.
Yeah, we were able to do it the old school way, the way that I think makes a better album. Just all of us together in a room, trying to push each other, trying to make the songs better, having Jeff come up with some cool guitar parts, and I think that's what makes a band. It's like having everybody in the same room. So that was really rad. And I think in terms of the release, we're such a live as, touring is so important for us and being, close to our fans that it made no sense just throw it out there while we couldn't do that. So.
And people will want to see you. You've been touring, but where can people see you going forward? What's the plan next?
We're on the road a lot. We're touring right now, doing some festivals in Europe, and then we're going to Canada, some festivals in Canada. Then we're doing a big tour with The Offspring and Sum 41 across America for 5 weeks, and then plans to come back to Europe, do a headlining tour, probably Australia, South America. So we're going everywhere. So just all of our socials, website, Instagram, TikTok, all that, and all the info's there.
Good, it sounds good.
Awesome.
And when it comes to writing, how do tracks tend to start off for you? Is it a lyric? Is it a vocal, a riff, a drum beat, as the band had earlier? Or?
We've always kind of had the same thing. Chuck and I do all the writing together, and it usually comes from either a musical idea or a lot of times it's like a concept, a lyrical concept that Chuck will come up with, like a title or something like that, and that will sort of throw the inspiration of where we're heading, and then from there we pick it up and run and build the rest around it.
Yeah, and once you step foot into the studio, obviously the demos are done, but how do you get it then from demo to a finished track?
We're very lucky that our demos, Pierre is the mastermind of all the studio stuff and the demos, and honestly they kind of sound like 90%, 95% there. So we just waste a lot of time re-recording everything.
The guys get to change them a little bit. Obviously, I think that we're always open to anything. So if Jeff has an idea of how to take a riff that I've written or something like that and make it better, we kind of go that way. So that's kind of the difference between the demos and of course, when we do a demo, I'm kind of recording as we're going. as we're writing, and then we just look at that and how can we honor this song as best as we can. How can we make this even better? So we basically take what we have already and we just push it to the finish line,
and have the great performances, and have the guys, like Pierre said, chime in and bring in their side and their creative ideas, which is rad. And that's when it really becomes Simple Plan song,
And over 20 years in the business now, you must have some cool stories and things. But one thing I like to ask is, if there's a band watching who are just starting up, what advice would you give them?
It's kind of tricky because I feel like the time that we, were coming up as a band and how we started and how we got to where we are today is such a different era than it is today. That the advice would be, to me now, I wouldn't tell them to do what we did, because we did our own path, and that's kind of how it worked in 1999 and 2000, 2001. But today, I would say utilize social media. I think that's the biggest tool now. Every label is looking for people that have a following, and it's, I think, even more important than having, not that having great songs is important, but it's just as important to have a social media following, use the tools. And I would say, as an artist, as a musician, learn to record yourself. If you have the power to, get an okay microphone, get a good software, whether it's Ableton or Pro Tools or Logic or whatever, and learn to write and produce yourself, and that will be a big, big game changer in the future. Because if you're a good singer, but you need someone else to build the track for you, well, unless they're your buddy, you're going to have to pay for that. And if you can do it yourself, it enhances your creativity and enhances your knowledge of how songs work and how to sort of make them better. So that's what I would suggest.
Yeah.
Social media and learn to record.
To add to that, I would say that know who you are. Don't chase what's out there. Figure out what you're truly passionate about, what really resonate with you, and do that. Don't try to do something that somebody else is doing, and don't try to be a million things. It's better to be one thing great than trying to do all the styles on one album. And I would say, when you pick your band, pick people that, not necessarily the best guitar player or the best drummer or the best singer. Pick somebody that you can get along with for the next 10, 15, 20 years, because it doesn't really matter how great they are if you can't stand to be on the road for 2 weeks together. So I think that for some good longevity, that's a really big important thing.
Yeah, because for you guys, 20 years in the business together, you have to get along.
We're still hanging on.
Good.
That's the key. It makes a huge difference. You have to keep the band together.
Yeah. Guys, it's been a pleasure having a catch up.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Awesome.
Cheers.